Welcome to Global Desi Women, the podcast where powerful South Asian voices share real stories, bold moves, and a whole lot of heart. I'm your host, Arti Solanki, a business coach, real estate broker, and author of a Hindu rituals book. And with me, I have my fabulous co-host, Vinoo Palicha, founder of VDesi Ethnic Wear, a brand that celebrates the elegance of our heritage. Today, we are thrilled to welcome a woman who embodies grace, strength, and purpose, Nima Mistry. She's a board certified exercise physiologist, a lifelong Kathak dancer, and also a founder of Kathak Bells Handmade Creations. Nima merges fitness, classical Indian dance, and Gujarati pride in a way that inspires and deeply rooted in the culture. We'll dive into her journey from classroom to stage, from science to self expression, and how she empowers the next generation through her mentorship movements and her meaningful connections and her Garba workshops and all the details, all the fun stuff. We'll get into it. But before we get started, I do want to thank to all my listeners. It is such a amazing week for us, a celebration. We are down to K downloads. So really, really excited about that. I truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you for your amazing love and support. So let's get started. I hope you all have your cup of chai so we can dive into our conversation. Well,
Didn't realize we were having chai.
I am
I had it earlier. I would have brought it in my I have my little clay cup. I would have brought it and I would have just been sipping
sipping the
from my
chai, right?
I have a cooler, an actual cooler. So
That would have been
yeah,
nice.
I love my desi aesthetic. So I love my cooler and my cutting chai cups.
How
Like
nice.
my afternoon chai, if I have it, it has to be in one of those cups, even if I'm not showing it off to anyone.
Wow, that's very nice. Welcome, welcome to our show. We truly appreciate you being here with us and sharing your journey. I really appreciate that you took this time to share your story and also enlighten us with the different things that, you do. I would say three completely different
Yeah.
areas. You are in physiology and you are in Kathak dance. You're also doing the Garba workshops, you tutoring, mentoring. There's so many things that's going on. So let's get started. And to begin, I want to ask is like, what inspired you to pursue both, the kinesiology and also Indian classical dance? What got into, like, what made you think? I know the Kathak part you started very early age. So tell us a little bit about both of those.
So it was never intended this way. When I was a child, I never thought, if I look, 10 years ago, I never thought I'd end up here. When I was younger, my focus was pre med. And I was always a lover of dance, whether it's Kathak. I initially started as a Bharatanatyam dancer. My journey started there at the age of 7. And then I moved from one teacher to another and continued my journey. And there was always a pull towards Kathak. Always. Every time I saw it in a movie and even filmy classical now, it's like for me, I look at it and I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about this. Not all classical, that's shown in film is very, very accurate
Right.
or portrayed well. But even then, I have to give it credit for pulling me towards Kathak because it did. And there was a point in my life where I was just like, mom, dad, I have to learn Kathak. And I was initially ready to leave Bharatanatyam for it.
Mm.
But my parents were like, no, you should not leave because you have spent 4 years here. Do both. So I did both.
Wow.
And then
They're very different forms.
very different forms and very different structures. And it had been, I think I was a seventh grader then, so 12 years old, that I started Kathak. And by that time, I was 4 years, 5 years in Bharatanatyam. and I was doing both and I was juggling both. And I had a lot of physical stamina then.
Mm.
I was very skinny, completely different person, right? And so then, my eighth grade year, my Bharatanatyam teacher moved to Bangalore, and she's a film or she's a TV series actress there now, and she's doing so well. And we're still in touch. She still adores me, and I absolutely value her connection. And I'm so glad that even though I did not continue with the art form, she's still there in my life as a mentor, and she always answers me when I'm there. So I'm very grateful for that. But I continued with Kathak.
Mm.
And somewhere in the midst of it, I entered high school. And high school in the United States is very, very intense, especially if you're Desi. Sometimes you don't have time for childhood. And I did my best to still keep my childhood intact, but also take all these difficult courses. I was 2 grades ahead in mathematics. So by the time I was a sophomore, I was taking pre calculus and statistics,
Mm.
um, which normally juniors and seniors take.
All right.
And then my senior year, I took calculus, and then, or sorry, junior year, I took calculus. Senior year, I had no math to take. Um, and by that time, I was like dead seriously, wanting to be an orthopedic surgeon,
Mm.
wanting to go into medicine, saying that, yeah, dance is a part of my life. That's the reason I'm going to orthopedics. It's like bones and muscles and all of that. But, there are other careers that nobody told me about.
Mm.
Nobody told me that this exists. Nobody told me these things, right? So there were a lot of things I learned later on in life, only 1 to 2 years ago. Now, when I was studying as a pre-med, I started out as a biochem major. And biochem, there's a lot of difficult courses from, baby chem to organic chemistry. And the ironic thing is organic chemistry is not what made me stop and say, I don't want to do this. Organic chemistry was fun. I enjoyed it. I had a blast. I don't remember anything anymore, but I had a blast. I had a good time, even though we had like these 6-hour labs. I really enjoyed it. I got to isolate clove oil from cloves. Not many people can say that they did that. Not many people can say that they made their own aspirin, in chem lab. We weren't allowed to take it home, sadly, but purified, but it was definitely a very interesting thing to do. So I'm really grateful for these things, even though I don't really use them. It's a knowledge that I can say that I have a certain background in it. And so when I see something that people say is like, you know I can call out in terms of health and say, this that's not how the body works, that's not how chemistry works, that's not how biology works.
Right.
And it's nice to be able to do that. The change happened my junior year when I was with my academic advisor.
Mm.
And she said that I don't think this major is for you. And I was like, yeah, I agree. I don't understand what's going on in biochemistry. And I still took the class. I made a 47 or 48 average, and that was a C. That was a C, which
That was a
normally you would
turning point.
consider like beyond failing, but that was a C. And I have no idea what happened. But I changed my major to kinesiology, and luckily a lot of my courses, my science courses carried over. So all I had to do was take the
Mm.
major related courses, and it was a lot easier. Granted, you still have to put in a lot of work. People think, oh, kinesiology, very, very easy. But no, there's a lot of work. There's still biomechanics. There's a lot that goes into exercise science that people don't realize, right? It's
Right.
not an easy journey, nor
Yeah.
is nutrition, which is my master's minor. I didn't complete the registered dietitian exam, but I did study nutrition for quite a bit.
What is kinesiology for somebody who has no idea?
Kinesiology is the science of exercise. Not just a lot of people associate it with physical therapy, and yes, a lot of people who study kinesiology do go into the physical therapy route, but it's the study of exercise, how the body metabolizes sugars and fats and proteins, to that level, right? How the body metabolizes, how it uses these things, how our muscles work, even the individual muscle fibers that we have in our body, the individual muscle cells. That's an important aspect of it, as well as what's going on in the body when you lift, when you exercise, so that's all exercise physiology and kinesiology falls within the realm. But another aspect of that is the social aspect, or the aspect of community that we learn in our community nutrition and community exercise classes about, creating programs for clients, because each client or each person who comes to us, especially in the exercise physiology world, right, is different. No two humans are the same. No two diabetic humans are the same, right? And so that's the beauty of exercise, an exercise physiologist. Now, I've never practiced it professionally, but I am licensed to. Uh, and I worked as a personal trainer to gain experience.
So
But
you
that
want
role is,
you're focusing more on the physical aspect of it, like
yes, the more scientific aspect. Whereas personal training is more sales oriented and
Mhm.
competition oriented, very bodybuilding oriented. Whereas somebody who comes to me is more like, hi, I'm a type 2 diabetic, or hi, I'm pre diabetic. And, I have no idea how to manage my body. My doctor says I need diet and exercise, but he never told me how to. And a lot of people complain that it's like, my doctor never told me how to diet and exercise.
Right.
And there is a certain fault in the doctors too, that they should be recommending the correct professionals
Yeah.
and referring the correct professionals to actually work with you on these things, right? A doctor cannot, a medical doctor is licensed to practice medicine. So, yes, you're going to get the option of diet and exercise, which they're not going to tell you how to do, or they're going to prescribe you medicine, which is their specialty, which is their scope of practice,
Right, right.
right? And
But I think it's also because, you know, in this country we also have to go through the insurance and stuff. And a lot of times, when
that's,
the doctor says, "Oh, you need this or that," then patients might be thinking that, "Oh, I have to spend another money out of my pocket, or do I?" So this is just my guess that that could be
yeah,
one of the
absolutely.
reasons
Absolutely.
that the doctors don't recommend certain things unless you ask them that, hey,
Absolutely.
do I need to do certain, or do I need to have a certain profession to do, help me out in achieving this goal? And then they might be referring it to you.
Absolutely. And that's where some of these things I want to bring into mainstream healthcare and into, it's unfortunate that unless you have a good insurance, you can't really get a good practitioner sometimes, depending on whether you're on Medicaid or Marketplace or things like that. And nutrition and exercise, I don't want to say therapy, I want to say exercise intervention.
Right.
Those things are part of preventative care too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but are professional, typically people don't go to dietitians unless they're like, either an athlete or they are diabetic or something. And even then, it's usually associated with eating disorders and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But
unless they really, really think it's like now there's no other option, and then they might even think about it,
well,
but
they don't
not
even
in the
know about these things in the
preventive.
first place.
Right, right. But I'm saying it's like they don't think about it as a preventive measures, right? The only
Yeah,
time certain
absolutely.
somebody thinks about it is like when they're really, really like, okay, now I have kind of like a life and death situation. Now I have no other options. I can't do it myself. Now I have to have some professional help. And that's when they actually think of taking that step. And which is really
Absolutely.
sad.
Yeah, it's
And
upon us,
even then,
right? It's up to
it's
us. We have to personally find someone and figure out that okay, this one can help me with this, and then go see that person, the
but there are a
specialist.
lot of people out there who can go by the label and not be like, for example, there's registered dietitian nutritionist, RDN, which are the people who have the degree, who have taken the exam, who have done the unpaid internship, who have done the work to have that certification, right? They have that background knowledge. Then there's nutritionist. Nutritionist is an unprotected term. Somebody without a degree who is selling, an MLM product. I can't name any companies, obviously, but somebody who's selling some sketchy product can claim to be a nutritionist, even if they have no background in it. And so that's where people do get duped, right? Now, I can claim it because, I can claim it and still have legitimacy because I have a degree, but I'm still not a registered dietitian unless I go through the whole board exam process, which is a very difficult exam. But a lot of people don't understand that a lot of people who claim to practice exercise and diet and, recommending you supplements and things like that, they're not necessarily educated to do so,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not, shaming anyone who doesn't necessarily have a background or doesn't have a degree. But if you're interested in certain things, then you should probably pursue the path, right? Go through what we went through to get you know,
Right.
where we are today.
Right, right, right. So has your academic background, how has that influenced the perspective as a dancer or as a businesswoman?
Again, it never started that way. And I started Kathak Bells in the pandemic because I just saw how hard it was to get, ghungroos as individuals. It was either dance teachers ordering in bulk from India, and then sometimes those things get, destroyed in the process, or people ordering from, these big websites like Amazon and Walmart, and sometimes not necessarily getting the quality. So I went and checked for that, and at that time I did not have a job. I had just graduated. I knew I kind of wanted to start something in the Kathak world. So, it started very, very small. And it started with my guru school. And that's the money I used to fund a website and fund, you know, understand shipping and things like that. So it's a very small scale business.
So tell us a little bit about that. So it's like so I understand it's an online, people from anywhere can purchase it or just
Through
US?
US and Canada.
US and Canada. Oh, okay. And they can tell you exactly what they want because I guess you are the designer.
Let's take a quick break.
Hi, this is Rahul, host of the Bearded Mystic podcast. Subscribe to this podcast as I dive deep into the philosophy of non-duality within Hinduism. I speak about the teachings of the mystics from numerous traditions. There's guided meditations, and currently I'm giving my thoughts on the Bhagavad Gita. Come and join me. Subscribe right now to the Bearded Mystic podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you're listening now.
The options are available online. I don't really buy like different size ghungroos. I know some people would prefer like 16 millimeter bells over 20 over, whatever. I stick to 20. And the reason why I stick to what I stick to is because of the sound it makes, which has been approved by my guru once again, right? And a lot of people do stick to that standard
Mm,
just because you want a certain loudness.
right.
You want a certain, when the foot makes a stomp, the ghungroo should be heard louder than the tap of the foot, right? But in certain gharanas, they prefer the opposite.
So it
Even
just
the people.
depends on the teacher
It
as well.
depends. It depends on
Yeah.
the teacher. It
So is
depends
it
on
also I'm not anywhere close to any traditional dancing part, but so is it like they only made on the red cloth or
No, no. So each style is different.
okay.
Gathak ghungroos come on like a macrame cord,
Hmm,
right? And you have to string it, and there's a braid behind it.
I see.
It's like there's a braid behind it, right? And that braid part is what goes on your ankle. And you typically, like with Bharatanatyam ghungroos, you don't need to wear like sleeve on your leg or I guess yeah, I
Like
guess you can call it a sleeve.
sock, yeah.
Yeah, like a
Like a
cut up sock.
footless sock, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like a cushion. But with Kathak ghungroos and Odissi ghungroos are also, they have a different way of braiding it, but their ghungroos also are on a string.
Well,
Whereas
I always had the picture in my mind because when you see all these dancers, they have like this red cloth and then there's all the bells tied to it.
So
that
they're like
depends
the
on
God.
the
easiest ones.
style.
They're probably the easiest ones. This one goes like 25, 50, 75, 100. You can
I
go.
wear 150 per ankle. So, yeah.
Interesting. Wow, this is something new because I was thinking when you say designer ghungroos, I was thinking, oh, maybe like, you can have the color you want for this cloth or like, of course the size of
No,
the bells, but that's what I was
I don't
thinking.
do Bharatanatyam ghungroos or kuchipudi. Well, I guess Bharatanatyam kuchipudi ghungroos fall in the same category, but I don't do those ghungroos yet.
Hmm.
I have contemplated it, but those I probably will not hand make. Um,
Hmm.
but my
And why
partner,
is that? Are they more difficult to do or are there
I don't know how
certain
to, and there is no guidance on how to do it. But I
ah
am talking to my part, and also I'm one person. I'm one person. That's the hard part. And a lot of people who reach out to me do not realize that the reason why their order can take up to 8 weeks to be received is because there's literally one person sitting in her living room watching Phineas and Ferb and just, you know.
Yeah.
And
That's really amazing that
it's
you
not
taught
the only
yourself.
thing I do, right? Because,
Yeah.
uh, like for
Wow.
me, money is like I have to, make money, but also still keep this dream intact.
Right, right.
But
But
luckily,
this
my
is so nice. Like, you have, I guess you had that vision of doing something for your dance and you thought of something really out of the box because I've never, at least I have not heard about like, designer Kathak ghungroos or something like that. And so for me,
I wouldn't call it designer as much as I would just call it,
Just regular
ghungroos that are
ghungroos.
made with love and
Yeah.
made by Kathak dancers for Kathak dancers.
yeah.
And even then, not every Kathak dancer likes my ghungroos or finds them suitable for them. And you know what? More power to them. It's okay. It's okay if it doesn't suit them.
But it actually solves such a huge problem, right? Them ordering in bulk and not knowing how much is going to get used or how it's going to be, that versus somebody over here making it and giving it, unless the demand is very high and
My
you're not able.
bells do come from India.
Of
So,
course, of
yeah,
course, yeah. But then you assemble it over here,
I assemble it here.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it has to have a particular number of bells on it.
So on my website, people can choose, based on, what I sell, they can choose like what's available. And
Okay.
a lot of the advanced dancers, they stick to 100. So there's another misconception a lot of people think is that, the more bells you wear per ankle, the more advanced of a dancer you are. But it's also to do with, your body weight as well as, what your teacher thinks is appropriate for you, as well as what makes a good sound on you. So there are a
Wow.
lot of younger dancers who are not as advanced, who are maybe like, 3 to 5 years in, who wear 100 plus 100 because their bodies can handle it. There are a lot of dancers who are high level dancers, but they wear 75 plus 75, even though they're super senior.
Mm.
I wouldn't call myself super senior. 15 years, even though it seems like a long time, it's not. I wear 150 plus 150 because I'm definitely heavier built and I just kind of own it.
Right.
It's also, it works like weights for your legs, and when you're
It does. It
practicing
does.
Kathak, it's a good workout.
It does. It
It's,
tones
yeah,
your
it's an
calves
amazing.
very well.
I should
Yes.
try it sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
It would be nice. I mean, I love traditional dance. I did try when I was younger. I did try Bharatnatyam. Um, was I don't know, for some reason at that time I was interested in too many things.
Too many other things.
Yeah, and I mean, I think during that phase, I was more into painting, and so I was more interested into that. And I had taken a lot of classes for arts, and I'd done too many projects at home, so I know that I was a lot more interested in that at that time, and so I didn't pursue the Bharatanatyam.
You're too late.
Yeah, I know, but
It's never too
I think
late.
I do too many things that I don't think I can add one more. I have no time for that.
Some things we just do for the soul, some things we do to, take it forward. And
Yeah,
so not everyone who pursues dance wants to take it forward.
right.
A lot of people do, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah. I mean,
I
it's just like you said, right? It's for the soul. And a lot of time we do it for our own enjoyment, for our peace, your joy. And just like I started learning Veena, and that's not because I want to be a musician or something. I just
yeah.
love it. I was just telling my teacher the other day that, you know, even though I just started learning it and I'm 100% sure the person listening to my when I'm playing, they probably just hear the sound doing, doing, doing. But for me, it feels so peaceful. I feel like, oh my God, I love this. But that's when you said that, it's just for your soul. I can totally I feel like, oh my God, that's exactly how I feel when I play it. And it's funny because when I asked my husband, how does it sound to you? And he's like, I don't know how it's supposed to.
You cannot
Yeah.
differentiate
Yeah, no, like
good what's bad.
he better not say anything.
Yeah, it's the same way for me. It's like I could literally go to my friends or family and I could, present a dance to them. I myself will feel like this was the worst I have ever done, right? And I know it is. I know it is, right? And they'll still be like, I didn't notice anything. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
When you as you start advancing more and more, you start developing expectations for yourself. And sometimes we forget to find that soul again.
Yeah. Or even appreciate yourself, right? Because you need
Right,
to
right.
take that moment to appreciate yourself.
And that's another reason to, take a break. And even when I like took this break and started practicing on my own, I'm like, tune out everything else and just find the soul within. Just find that heart within again, just find that love for the dance and, dance with that and literally nothing else. Nobody's approval, nobody's reaction, nobody, And even if they're watching, let them watch, but it's not for them.
Yeah.
It's not for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coming back to your kinesiology, as we get older, we all know that, okay, you should work out, you should do strength training and all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But how, like, for somebody in their 40s and 50s, if they're starting really late in their life, what kind of weight can they start with? And what's the max they should go up to in order to have stronger muscles and bones, of course?
That's not something I can really answer because I've not seen you, right?
Okay.
I so each
In
person is
general, in
different.
general.
I I can't even go with the general because like each person's body is built so different. Even in the exercise physiology standards, like
Mhm.
we do have certain standards that you should reach, but most people are not there.
So it
And
would be like a person to person basis. You would have to.
everything is individualistic,
Gotcha.
So
right?
based on their height, weight, and all that, or is there any
Height,
other?
weight, what kind of existing conditions they have. You'd have to just see, like, some people, I had them a 5 pound and it's very, very easy. And they move on to 10. And also it depends on what you're doing, right? Not everything is like, bicep curls.
Right.
There's all kinds of different exercises to do with weights, right? There's all kinds of muscle movements. For
Mhm.
me, like for example, one of my favorite machines is the seated leg press. And with that, I can easily pull 180, right? Somebody weighing 300 pounds or 200 pounds, even though they're heavier built than me, they might not be able to pull that. They might only be able to pull 50.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a strength that they first need to build a little bit of strength and then they go for the weights, I guess.
And that strength doesn't just come from training, it comes from what you eat too. Because, a lot
Mhm.
of people don't realize that we utilize everything that we eat. And obviously, one of the things that we do in one of the things I've noticed every fitness influencer do, and some of them they have a certification, but they don't have like other background knowledge. So a lot of people have demonized sugar. A lot of people have demonized sugar and carbohydrates. And yes, too much sugar is bad. Too much of anything is bad. But at the same time, this is the main source of energy that your body utilizes. So just finding that balance. And that's why it's important to have certified professionals all around. Otherwise, you have random people doing, giving random advice. And this is why like I want to bring merge like science and dance together. It's already happening, but it needs to happen a lot more.
Right, right. So tell us a little bit about Garba in your life. I mean, how did that get started? And like, I came to one of your workshops and it's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend everybody to go and enjoy. have a good time and learn a few steps and learn moves because I definitely learned a few more moves that I thought I knew Garba, but I guess I didn't.
It's Garba has been a huge part of my life, a huge part of my identity because I've been going to Garba since, like since I was not even a toddler, maybe even a baby, maybe even like
I
inside
think
my
as a good Jew, we all like since we are babies, we start going to Garbas, right?
right.
It's like in our blood.
It's
It is.
that community building aspect. And Gujarati Samaj of Houston is, the vibe of Garba there, I have not felt anywhere else. And so even when they had their little Gandhi Center, it used to be called,
You're right.
in the 90s and early 2000s,
Yeah.
I have very faint memories from when I was, I don't want to say a toddler, but maybe when I was 3, I was, going into the crowds and, merging. And sometimes my mother would have to chase me because all I wanted to do was dance. All I wanted to do. And then, I started learning more advanced moves, Doriu type of moves in early childhood. But there was a time where like my interest was, you know, diminishing. And that was when I was getting more into academics and, things like that. And
Right.
that passion, that love for Garba resurfaced only a few years ago when I started seeing things on Instagram Reels. I used to wear your shadi wala ghagra choli to Garba with like the gold
Wow.
muslin set and things like that, right? And then after a certain period of time, I think it was in 2022 or 2023 that I started, shifting to traditional Garba attire with our more Gamti or Kathiawadi type of chanya cholis with our oxidized silver from head to toe,
Yes. Yes.
making patterns around the bindis, making the
Been there,
dots,
done
those
that.
paintings, you know, like
Yeah.
last year I went full out, I didn't just do the dots. I did like a plus sign here and then like the whole like
Chundana.
Gujarati alphabet
Chundana.
going down to my
Yeah.
neck.
Yeah, those are
I did the
chundana.
whole Gujarati alphabet going down to my neck, and I did, like, little stars.
Wow.
I used white eyeliner, and I added more stars. I had these gems, that
Wow.
people do for their nails, but I put lash glue, and I put it around my eyes. I went crazy last year. Like, the craziest I've gone for Garba. I went last year, and probably because I met a group at the Ras Leela workshop in the summer,
Uh-huh.
um that made me get into the spirit, and actually I learned more moves myself. So I'm still a learner when it comes to Garba, but what I've learned when I brought some of my friends there is that, some people cannot learn it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, it takes a while.
You know, they
Especially if
want
they're not good Jews, I feel like good Jews kind of like, even if they don't know, they probably because they've seen it, right? They've grew up, even though they don't play it, they've seen it. Their mom's doing it, or in the family, they're all going and they're watching it. In the weddings and the parties, we good Jews don't need a
yeah.
reason for Garba, right?
We do Garba, and our casual Garba is just,
Yeah,
birthdays, weddings,
exactly.
pool parties, Christmas parties, New Year's, casual Tuesday. Doesn't matter.
Do you like host the workshops often, or are you just getting started?
I'm just getting started with this
Okay.
because I started to realize how much people can benefit from technique workshops.
Yes. Especially going towards the Garba, since it's coming up in a few months. I guess this
Yeah,
is the right
yeah.
time.
Yeah, my favorite time of year now, is
Yeah.
Navratri.
You burn so much calories in Garba. That's the only one thing I look forward to. I'm like,
And
yeah,
our
let's do
American
it.
American tradition, I don't know if you know this, but Desi Americans, after Garba, it is, a thing. And whether I'm by myself or with somebody, it is a thing to go and get Taco Bell after.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's a tradition. That's a tradition for sure. That is 100% a tradition because I don't I feel like that's I don't know how that trend started, but even I
Yeah, no,
remember
but
my kids
there's something
doing the
about
same thing.
Gujaratis and Mexican food. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah. Taco Bell is like a lifeline for us. If Taco
yeah,
Bell is
yeah, it is.
listening to our podcast, sponsor this because we're talking about.
Actually, there is a DJ in Chicago, and I'm pretty sure he'd be happy to hear his name on this podcast. His name is Chirag Gandhi.
Okay,
He goes by
yeah.
DJ Realist, and in
Yes,
Chicago,
I know. I actually have heard of him, and I think to one of the parties I've attended, I've heard, I've seen him perform, like being an MC, a DJ, and stuff. So I know him. Yeah, he's really good. He's really good.
he's really good, and I've seen his videos. I've never experienced his DJing, but I saw the transition that he does in Garba,
Mm.
and a lot of DJs, even the Gujarati ones, do not know how to transition from one Garba to another, to
You
another,
have
to
to
another,
maintain the rhythm.
to
Yeah.
maintain that rhythm. And
Yes.
even when to go from that slower to that faster, faster, faster.
Okay.
With different
Yeah.
Garbas, when you don't have live singers and you have to use a bunch of tracks and
Right.
combine them, and different tracks from different singers, because you don't want to just keep it entirely Aditya Garvi or Ashwarya or whatever. You want to mix them together, right?
Yeah.
He does a really good job from what I've seen. And so, if Chirag, if you're listening to this, shout out to you.
Yeah.
But I was talking to him about the possibility, because he hosts Taco Bell Garba over there.
Wow.
Yeah, he hosts an actual like Taco Bell Garba where
Wow.
like people
Wow.
do
Wow.
Garba and then they eat Taco Bell, and it's a whole social event, right? And I
Wow.
was thinking, what if we brought that to Houston? We do have quite a good,
Would be awesome.
Yes. Sounds fun.
yeah. So I've, toyed with the idea, but I still do not know anything about getting sponsors for events and things like that. And
Well,
I think
you learn as you
events is
go.
one of my favorite thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we just asked for Taco Bell to sponsor it, so
I don't know. Taco Bell can sponsor the food, I
yeah.
don't know. Low key, like if I ever get married, if I ever find somebody who will marry me, then my dream is definitely, a lot of people do a pre-wedding sangeet where it's more like a pre-wedding reception, but for me it's like I don't want any random songs, save all that for the reception, but let's focus on Garba here. Let's actually serve Taco Bell. Let's actually make like a
Yeah, that
Garba
would be nice.
carnival with Taco Bell, have some like face painting and art and stuff like that. Like almost like a mela type of event. That is one of my
Yeah.
dreams.
Oh, wow.
You're in the wrong field. You should be an event.
Yeah,
I know,
I
I
know.
know. Sometimes I'm just like, after
Try
seeing
and
like
combine the two.
weddings, right? And seeing like what kind of innovations are coming up in weddings, I'm just like,
Yes.
man, I could have, you know.
Yeah. You should.
Nima, this is so interesting that you are, of course, you're younger generation than we are, me and Minu are, but seeing you so much submerged into culture, it's so nice to see this. Like, the Garba singers, we started out with the chai and kullar. And so have this knowledge and have this
Passion.
love for the culture. It's so wonderful. It's so nice to hear this. And tell us, how did you, like, especially how did you get into connected with the culture so much? Obviously, I'm really guessing your parents have a big hand in it, but like
Yeah.
still, not every kid, like for us too. I mean, like we try to be, teach our kids everything culturally related, but that doesn't mean that they're gonna love it, or they're gonna really fall into it. But you sound like you are really submerged into culture. So tell us, how did you really get into all this?
Well, my father grew up here. He was born in India, but he grew up here. He actually went to Dulles High School and the University of Houston, and I'm a second generation Cougar.
Wow.
Um, and my mother grew up in India. So she told me her stories and how, and even my father had some stories, and those little coolers, those little diyas that are made of clay, I'm a
Yeah.
Mistry, right? My last name is Mistry. So my lineage is architects. It is people who made these little clay things, made things by hand.
Right.
A lot of that is in my lineage, but also music comes along because my grandmother can sing. My father got training from my grandmother's brother, so my great uncle.
Mm.
And he's very active, and he was very, before he moved to Austin, he was very active in the classical community here. He plays tabla, he sings, he plays harmonium. So
Wow.
occasionally he'll pick up gigs. His name is Surendra Mistry.
Mm.
He does, back when he was active here, he did have a huge connection. And so I had, I didn't know that I grew up privileged actually, for
Okay.
all I know, right? I didn't know I grew up privileged. My family when I was young was pushing me towards singing and playing the harmonium and learning these notes. I didn't realize that was such a privilege
Yeah.
because for all I know, like for me, I was thinking, every Indian dad's a singer. Like, what's so special about that? No, I thought everyone's dad was a musician. And it was only later on in life when I was learning Kathak and learning these rhythms and, things like that, that I was like, this is Dadra, this is Ektal, this is, I've heard this before,
Right.
right? And then I go and talk to my uncle, my great uncle, and he was like, yeah, I've been trying to teach you this. But then that made us engage in a dialogue
Yeah.
that connected me to them, that connected me back to my family and back to
Right.
what runs in my family.
Right.
Because, my father plays the tabla and plays it pretty well, and not everyone like who learns music in early childhood continues it throughout.
Right.
My father still plays harmonium and sings.
So, what do you want to say to the younger women who, are, I guess, in the midst of like getting their careers set or just finding love or whatever it is? But
I'm
what would you
still
like to
there.
say?
I'm still there. I'm not.
No, but I feel like you are such a, I would say, a great example for traditional, as far as our tradition and our culture goes. You're such a great example. And what would you say to another, even your age, right? Your generation, younger women, what would you like to give them an advice, or what would you like to tell them about our tradition, especially? Because a lot of kids nowadays are losing our tradition, they're losing our culture.
Well,
They
you would
feel
be
like it's not
surprised.
cool. Like, some of the kids
You
growing
would
up.
be actually. You would be very surprised because I sometimes see a lot more tradition existing in the United States than I do in
And in
India.
India. Yes.
When I was in India, when I visited India in January, February of 2024, I stayed there for 6 weeks.
Mm,
And I stayed with my cousin sister, who is in her 30s, mid 30s, actually about to be 40,
mm,
and her daughter. And, on the free days, like outside of wearing school uniform, they usually wear shorts or jeans and a t shirt and things like that. Whereas my comfort clothes are kurti leggings.
mm.
And I think Kathak has an influence on that because, when I started wearing this, it's like, that this is my, home, clothes, right?
Right, right, right,
And they were actually shocked to see that, I'm more into this and
right.
that, my ideal music that I listen to most of the time, like my favorite singer is Kumar Sanu, whereas, yes, they listen to like music, but it's more like modern, like Arijit Singh. And
Right.
don't get me wrong, Arijit is a great singer, but I feel like when it comes to that, like he sings everything now. Like
Yeah.
there's no diversity in vocals.
Yeah.
And in
But
our
I was
Indian.
talking mainly about the kids that are growing up here, right? Because even here, I feel like we still need to be focusing more, I would say, on
See a lot of
our
it here though.
culture and our traditions, and brings our community together. And also, we don't want to lose that connection, right, from passing down from generations, because what we learned from our parents, we may not be doing everything 100%, right? We may be doing only like 80% of it, but our kids are probably doing only like 60% of it, or their kids will be doing only like 40 or 30, or who knows, even if they'll be doing it or not, right? So slowly that,
I don't
I
know. I
feel
haven't
like,
seen that. I've gone to more Garbas than my parents even. My
yeah,
parents went once. I went about 5 times this year or last year, right? And even like for me, right? Maybe for me, there's a certain thing that I feel in my heart that drives me towards my culture, that drives me towards certain values. There's certain values that I don't necessarily follow.
Mm.
There's certain things I don't necessarily follow. Like for example, like when I get married, I don't want to say that I don't want a kanyadan, but I do know that like it's gonna be one of those like dual like, if my parents placed my hand in my future husband's hand, then my future husband's parents also have to place his hands in mine. So that becomes more of a varkanyadan. Or I guess in Gujarati weddings, we do call it hastamilap, right?
There is a
So,
hastamela, and I think Kanyadan has a. I was just talking about this word over the weekend with somebody, and there's a deeper meaning to it. It's not just about giving away the daughter, giving a dan
yeah,
to the daughter, but there's a deeper meaning to it.
but
That'll
the
take
name
like
of
a
it, the
whole
name of it,
another session for that if we start into that. But
yeah.
to come to before we end the show, I want to say is that what I want to ask you, what is an ideal global Desi woman for you?
This is hard because each Desi woman is different. And, you can go across India, you can go across, all the other countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal. And not every Desi woman is just Desi. Like, for example, I'm not just Desi, I'm a Desi American. I was born and raised here, right? So I guess somebody who is just, somebody who can, for me, I wear my culture on my body. I embody some of the values, but also I know where to let go and embrace new ideas. And somebody who knows where to find that balance, but also somebody who says, be loud about your culture, talk about your culture and embrace it,
Yeah.
There was a time where I thought I was too Indian. So I, kind of shunned away from it. And I was more, I was trying to be more Americanized, but then I just came back stronger. And, before, like, I would only wear, like, those tiny glittery bindis and, like, maybe a tiny like, like, now it's like I'm wearing a much louder bindi, and actually after going to India, it's like, I get so excited to put on my rings, my nut, my jhumki, my and,
Oh,
well,
nice. Yeah.
I love my ornaments. Yeah.
And you look so beautiful with all those
Thank
things.
you.
No, but thank you so much, Nima. It was really a joy having you here today with us. And your journey is so beautiful. Reminded that tradition and ambition can dance together in a harmony, right? And we wish you all the best for all your success and the taco and Garba. If that ever happens, don't forget us. We will definitely join in for
Yes.
some taco and for some moves. So we will definitely do.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously there's so much to say that, like, can't be fit in within an hour, but
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful to have your time and to have the time to speak on this podcast. Um, I think this is a really good source of empowering young women and to, hear people's stories. Hear, even if they're not like the biggest person, the biggest, like most successful person on this planet, even the smallest stories, like hearing my mother's stories, you
Right.
hear somebody's stories and it's a life-changing moment. So I thank you so much for that.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And it is a platform that we built so that we can bring inspiring stories, whether you're a dancer or a business person, an entrepreneur, or just a homemaker. It's not about we all have our journeys, we all have our stories, our strengths, our wins, our weaknesses. And that is why it is so important to come out and speak about it
We
because
are all successful women. We
exactly.
are all successful women.
Exactly.
No matter where we are at in life, right? I'm
Yes.
still living with my parents. I'm not, at a point where I'm fully independent, but I still think that, for where I'm at and for what I've, seen in my life with my PCOS journey with I can go on about so many different things like my PCOS journey, my mental health journey, my burnout, my academic burnout and just everything as a combination. I can say that I'm still a successful woman. I would
Absolutely.
say that no
Absolutely.
Yeah.
matter where you're going, like,
Yeah.
I guess when you brought out, what can you say to younger women, one of the things I would say is no matter where you are in life and no matter what kind of, you know, deeply, sad situations or unfortunate situations that you may be going through, understand that that's not a, like lack of success. You are still a successful woman, and you
Right.
should count every little piece that you achieve because
Yes,
that,
absolutely. I always say that celebrate even the smallest wins because that's what will even encourage you more to do better and get at the better place, right? But thank you so much. And our audience, if you've loved today's episode, don't forget to follow, share, and leave us a review. If you'd like to be interviewed, then contact us. Or if you'd like to be a sponsor for the podcast, reach out to us and we would love to collaborate with fellow Desi powerhouses. So until next time, keep rising, keep dancing, and keep owning your story. And of course, be kind to yourself and others. Goodbye.